She's joining us live from the scene. Jenese, what a day.
What a day, Mary. Well, this rescue shut down the entire neighborhood, and from the looks of how quiet it is now, you wouldn't believe it, but it really happened. And this is where it all began. City crews were working this morning, and lo and behold, they looked down and they saw a manatee stuck inside of a storm pipe here. And then over here to the left of us, they dug up this side of the street, they cut a pipe in half, and they rescued that manatee. When I talked with the fire and rescue crew earlier today, they said that this was the first time they'd ever done a rescue like this with a manatee that was probably 900 to 1,000 pounds. It was unbelievable to see this happen. And you had an entire crowd of people out here earlier today. You had children with signs, adults, everyone waiting for this one manatee to be rescued. A manatee stuck in a storm drain.
Hope they can get him out. You know.
You ever heard an unusual story like this?
No, I could understand if it was an alligator maybe, but I didn't think a manatee could actually fit through these pipes.
Parents and children looked on in disbelief. One kid had a sign saying, "Please save the manatee." The first rescue of its kind for this fire department.
To us, every life is precious for the firemen. Doesn't matter who they are. You know, we have had people risk everything for dogs. And with us, it's an unusual problem because we get here and the manatee's obviously been here for some time. You can tell because it's got scars on its head and it's too big to turn. You know, Dad, this is bad.
A city worker found the manatee this morning while a crew was paving this street. The last thing that they would have expected to see while paving a road. Fire and rescue cut a pipe in half to make it easier to get the beloved mammal out safely. 4 hours later, with only a couple of scratches, Fish and Wildlife expect this manatee,
He was the first reporter on the scene and has been following this story all day. Jenese.
It was an unbelievable rescue that began around 11 a.m. this morning. First, it all started when crews that were working on this street, paving this road, discovered the manatee in one of the storm drains. But let's take a look. Right now, what's happening is they're covering back the hole. This is where the storm pipe was located that they cut in half. They had to cut it in half because it was the only way they could get access to that manatee. Well, because it was a cement pipe, they have now been able to put it back together because they simply sliced it in half. They put it back on top, cemented it back together, and now you see crews working diligently to cover it up with dirt, put that there, and then they're going to go ahead and get that fixed. So this entire operation, as I just said, first they noticed the manatee was stuck in the storm drain around 8 this morning. Then at around 11, that's when fire crews arrived here to begin the process of rescuing that manatee. And then just after 3 o'clock, the manatee was finally rescued. But again, this is the very end of the process. You wouldn't believe it because there were over 50 to 100 people out here waiting, watching for that manatee to be rescued. It came to a happy ending when the manatee was taken out of the storm drain, now being transported to Orlando, where SeaWorld is waiting on that manatee to take care of he or she, and we're still waiting to find out what that manatee's name will be. Live in Artigas, Jenese Harris, Channel 4, the local station.
Harris just arrived on the scene. Jenese.
Bruce, this is not something you see every day. We're actually in a residential neighborhood where the manatee is actually trapped in one of these grates right here. So there were actually city crews working here earlier today, and they saw the manatee down here in the crate. Now talking with us, Nadia Gordon. She is a marine mammal research biologist with FWC. So tell us, what can you see?
Yes, we've got an adult manatee that is trapped here. We're working with the fire department, police, city, just working on an extraction plan for this animal. It will take some time, but we are optimistic. So working together, I think we'll be able to get the animal out. Again,
what is the condition?
Time consuming. Well, at this point, the animal does have scrapes and abrasions on its nose, so we know it's trapped in this area. It can't really turn around well, so we have to work to open up a larger area to extract the animal from with stretchers, since it's not a small animal.
All right, thank you, Nadia. And we've been told it's going to take approximately 6 hours to get this mammal out in a very unusual space. Normally, they migrate south during this time of year, but as you can see, an entire crew is here. They do plan on doing some construction to break up a part of the ground so that the manatee can then then swim a little further up and then extract the manatee out from up under the ground. But again, this could take about 6 hours. Jenese Harris, Channel 4, the local station. Back to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Jenese.
Thank you, Heather. Yes, we were at that press conference. We heard a lot of new details about this individual involved that created this entire circumstance of an alleged bank robbery that then led to 11 hostages. We still have with us crime and safety analyst Gil Smith. Now, talk about what you heard Sheriff Williams say, how this went from initially a bank robbery that then shifted to 11 hostages.
Yeah, these situations are never the same. No two hostage situations are the same. It really depends on what you get once you start negotiating. Now, it's not clear whether or not the hostage negotiators ever actually made contact with them or talked with them, or how successful they were. But it appeared that things were not going very well. He may not have been talking with them to make them feel comfortable with the situation, because he said he was pointing the gun at their heads, and so they must have heard something that made them feel uncomfortable, thinking that he may shoot these hostages. So they made the decision at that point to go in. And what actually helped them was the fact that 2 people were hiding inside. So once they came out, that gave the SWAT team their opportunity to go in. And when they did, they stood between the gunman and the hostages just in case he started shooting.
Talk about how critical that moment was, not knowing those 2 people were inside.
It's a very delicate moment. Like I said, you never know what you have with these situations. Even though they had been out there for over an hour, they may not have known that those people were inside. Maybe they did. They may have been able to communicate with them on cell phone. It's unknown at this point. But once that door opened, that was their opportunity. Okay, now we can go in, and that's what they did. And they actually risked their lives, of course, because they put the sheriff...
Shortly after making that mistake.
It read, the name given in the news briefing is not the suspect. We are trying to confirm suspect's name. Channel 4's Jenese Harris spoke with the mother throughout the day while her son was held hostage, and then again after he was released. Jenese?
It's been a very emotional day for Latasha Schumann, but she's very upset when we talked to her earlier because of the fact that her son's name had been mentioned as the gunman, and he was not that. In fact, he was a bank teller. He worked at that bank, and so she was happy when she found out that he was safe and that he was alive. But earlier we had a chance to talk to her before we got a conclusion on this, and she expressed her disappointment in what she wanted. We then heard from Sheriff Williams at the beginning of this hour at around 5 apologizing about the mistake. Take a listen.
I don't want to talk too much about it, but I'm not pleased with the releasing of the name. That was incorrect, stating that my son, DeAndre Schumann, was the suspect. He was not the suspect. I wasn't pleased about that, but other than that, I'm just grateful that it's resolved and taken care of.
We, at the end of the event, we knew that family members of the suspect were coming to the scene, and so we had alerted patrol officers, hey, and we weren't bringing them. They were coming on their own from what we heard. So we had alerted patrol officers at the perimeter, hey, if you find someone who is identifying themselves as a family member, get them to the command post so we can figure out who they are. So someone did come. I think the father of DeAndre came to the scene and said, hey, my son's in the bank. And so by the time we got him to the command post, all of the takedown was happening, all of that. So just in the confusion, that name was applied as the suspect. So again, an error on our part, an error on my part for putting that out.
A mistake there resolved tonight by Sheriff Williams, but that does not take away from the fact that this was a very successful operation for their SWAT team as 11 hostages were brought out safely and the gunman arrested. Jenese Harris, Channel 4, the local station.
Spoke with the mother throughout the day while her son was held hostage, and then again after he was released. Jenese?
When we first spoke with Latasha Schumann earlier today, she was in a panic, wanting to know if her son was safe. He is a bank teller at Community First Credit Union. She was worried about him. She received a text message where he then said, I am okay. That's all she knew. She still hadn't seen him yet. And then later in the day, we had heard from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office that his name was mentioned as the gunman. That was a mistake. We then talked to her after that. She said she was extremely upset about it and she wanted an apology. Well, she got that apology later on today.
I don't want to talk too much about it, but I'm not pleased with the releasing of the name. That was incorrect, stating that my son, DeAndre Schumann, was the suspect. He was not the suspect. I wasn't pleased about that, but other than that, I'm just grateful that it's resolved and taken care of.
I think the father of DeAndre came to the scene and said, hey, my son's in the bank. And so by the time we got him to the command post, all of the takedown was happening, all of that. So just in the confusion, that name was applied as the suspect. So again, an error on our part, an error on my part for putting that out.
And again, as you hear Sheriff Williams saying, it was simply a mistake and they have apologized for it. But tonight it is a happy ending because those 11 hostages are safe tonight and the gunman arrested. Jenese Harris, Channel 4, the local station. Happy Absolutely, Tarek. That was one of the things that Fish and Wildlife Conservation mentioned to us, that it was critical that they had air available for this manatee. They weren't aware of how long the manatee had been down in that storm drain. So that was critical for them, in addition to the fact of making sure that there was some water surrounding the manatee as well as it was trying to wiggle around. They didn't want it to hurt itself. So just unbelievable. These are one of those days where anyone who was here to witness this will tell everyone they know, can you believe that this actually just happened? You will not believe that this happened. I saw a manatee rescued in the middle of my neighborhood today. It is just an unbelievable story, and as I understand, everyone is just happy right now. Everyone around here is just happy.
That's for you, man.
Oh, no, I don't need it. I just got
How about you? We need your water.
She might.
Need your water.
Yeah, and right now, Tarek, if you all are still looking, they just closed down the truck. This process, this phase of the manatee being rescued is now over. And again, as I mentioned, that manatee will now be taken all the way down to Orlando at SeaWorld. And you know, we're going to have to, of course, follow the rest of this story, check on the condition of this manatee. And, you know, this community has fallen in love with this manatee, the rescue, the process, and all of those involved. But I will say that it was amazing to see everyone in this community come together, whether it were children and parents, or if it were fire and rescue or city crews. You know, you even had a kid make a sign that say, please rescue this manatee. So it's just been an amazing day to see this community come together. The city workers that are here right now, the city workers you see right here, this is the group of people that originally discovered that manatee just after 8 o'clock this morning. And then they made the phone call and the process began for this manatee to be rescued. But again, the weight of the manatee about 900 to 1,000 pounds. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl. You saw the length and the size of this manatee, and it's now going to be transported to Orlando, where SeaWorld is waiting on this manatee. And now all we need to know is, what will they name this manatee? Jenese Harris, Channel 4, the local station. Back to you, Tarek. The manatee is being raised. We're told it is alive. This is not the type of rescue you have every day, but Jacksonville Fire Rescue and City Crews, an amazing job. And there you have it. You can hear the crowd, the applause. And now that manatee, as we said, immediately being taken into the manatee rescue truck, Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation. Unbelievable. Look at that. And they say the manatee will be okay. So we just heard Nadia, and forgive me for not remembering her last name at this time, but she is with Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation. And she said now what they're going to have to do is put the manatee down and then use some of their own weight to help carry this manatee onto the truck. It's about 900 to 1,000 pounds there, Tarek.
and the children all standing around. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And as we're looking on, some of the fire and rescue crew members, at moments they have a smile on their face. There's a look of relief. They were very stressed about this. This was a very extensive